Member Andrew Little.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to speak on this, the Parole Amendment Bill, and to indicate from the outset that the Labor Party will support this bill at the very least to the Select Committee. It's a bill that does meet some obvious problems that there have been, that we had seen in the management of parole in this country, and comes up with some useful solutions to it, and it is worthy of examination by the Select Committee. Mr Speaker, I just say that this government is basking in the success of the work of the previous government in the criminal justice area, no less than the work of my colleague, the Honourable Phil Goff, who will talk in this debate about his great achievements. But the Parole Board, as we understand it today, was established by Mr Goff, probably one of the most far-sighted and visionary justice ministers we've had in this country, and he is entitled to say, and he is entitled to take credit for the many positive achievements that are being made, which this government, of course, takes credit for and has no business doing so. And I note, Mr Speaker, in the regulatory impact statement, their observation that the number of offenders who have been released on parole and who are committing offences having been released on parole has almost halved since the creation of the committee. So they are getting it right. It's moving in the right direction. But nevertheless, there is a problem with still too many parole hearings being convened relating to prisoners who really have no prospect of success for an application for parole or for consideration for parole. The nature of their time in prison, the passage through their sentence is simply not such that they would warrant being released on parole, even under the most strictest of conditions. So, Mr Speaker, this bill does address an obvious issue that needs to be considered. So if there are changes that need to be made to accommodate that, then all well and good. Let's ascertain whether the changes proposed in this bill will actually provide the remedy being sought. But, sir, I want to make this point too, and we will come at this with this in mind in terms of examining this piece of legislation, is notwithstanding the fact that there clearly are unmeritorious hearings being conducted, we don't want to lose sight of the fact that the Parole Board continues to provide very important and very effective oversight when it comes to the management of prisoners serving out their sentences in prison. The truth is that some prisoners can, particularly serving longer sentences, may take some time to get to a point in the duration or in the course of their sentence where they realise that they have to change. And whether or not they openly admit and acknowledge their wrongdoing and their fault as part of that journey for change, many nevertheless get to a point where they are willing to change. And we wouldn't want the deferral for a further extended period of the opportunity for consideration for parole when they may in fact be a suitable candidate for it, to be pushed out so far that it becomes a hopeless prospect for them. So, Mr Speaker, let's bear that in mind. We don't want those prisoners who are fit for parole, whether under suitable conditions or not, to be denied that opportunity when doing so would not only be better for the prisoner in terms of their rehabilitation and social integration, but actually better for the criminal justice system and the community as well. So let's not ignore what the Parole Board is there to do and the purpose of parole itself, notwithstanding the naysayers in our community who want to abolish parole altogether. But the other point I want to make is this too, Mr Speaker, and that is this bill appears to be yet another in the growing heritage of criminal justice legislation under this government that is haphazard, uncoordinated, incoherent, and largely about responding to the odd sort of flare-up in public opinion. You look at some of the provisions in this bill, and I'm looking specifically in Clause 14 and the proposed new Section 29AA, which relates to conditions being imposed on prisoners by the Parole Board, not something that's new, but it now provides for special release conditions. And yet only a month or two ago, we had the first reading of the Victims' Orders Against Violent Offenders Bill that requires victims at their own expense and their own cost to go to court to get special conditions put on just released prisoners. Now, how absurd is that? And I said at that time, and I maintain it again now, when it comes to the protection of victims of offenders, the criminal justice system should take responsibility for that. That's what a responsible criminal justice system does. That's what a government that is genuinely understanding of the needs of victims would do. And, Mr. Speaker, wouldn't it be a jolly good idea if a creative minister and creative members on the government side at the Select Committee could see that perhaps we could integrate parts of the Victims' Orders Against Violent Offenders Bill into this Parole Amendment Bill, thus obviating the need for the former and making the latter even more relevant than perhaps it might otherwise be. So, Mr. Speaker, I think this is a bill that is, opens the opportunity for fruitful debate, and we are prepared to do that, and we want to do that. But we want, most of all, and if I can make this plea to those members who have the ear of the Minister, because I don't know in this House who does, starting from the Prime Minister down, that actually it would be nice to have a justice policy or a justice strategy that actually develops and progresses the justice system so that it is coordinated and it is coherent. And the time of this House is not being taken up by sort of knee-jerk responses to yesterday's headline, that we actually have an approach that is about a good justice system, good criminal justice, that's about looking after victims, that is about managing offenders effectively with a view to minimising recidivism and ensuring rehabilitation and it being better for the country as a whole. I want to just express this disappointment when we come to, as we consider this bill. It is interesting in the regulatory impact statement when it adumbrates the benefits of the bill. The first thing it comes to is the cost saving, as if cost saving is the only thing that matters when it comes to managing prisoners. Now, yes, it is of course, it's desirable if the government can save $1 and not have to spend it if it doesn't have to. But the truth is, when we are dealing with matters of criminal justice and we are dealing with the awkward, sometimes nefarious, sometimes utterly bad personalities that pass through our criminal justice system, actually there is an investment that we make in getting the system right. The processing of it through the hearing and imposing of a hearing of crimes and imposing of penalties, but also the management of those who are offended, who are sentenced to whether it's imprisonment or other forms of punishment. We actually do need to make sure that that investment is made for the best possible outcome. So just achieving a saving is not enough on its own in terms of supporting these measures. But, Mr. Speaker, as I said, there is some worthwhile and fertile ground here for debate and discussion and scrutiny, and we will give it that, but we will go into it with Labor's approach of wanting a coherent, well-coordinated, well-managed, constructive and productive criminal justice system.
I call the honourable member Jacqueline Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So this